Before I explain anything today, I want you to think about something very specific. Have you ever had a day where you felt like your feet just didn't bother you as much? Now, not completely gone, just easier. The burning is still there, but it's not controlling your entire day. The tingling is there, but you're not thinking about it constantly. You walk a little bit more naturally, and you're not checking your feet every few minutes. You get through a meal without constantly shifting in your chair, and you have a conversation without half of your attention being placed on your feet. And then you think for a moment, okay, something feels better today. And then a few days later, it's right back. Burning again, pins and needles, that numb, disconnected feeling in the bottom of your feet. Your balance once again feels off, and you're back to watching every step. Now, you're trying to figure out what changed. Was it something that I ate? Did I walk too much? Did I not walk enough? Was it my sugar? Was it my stress levels? Did I have a bad night's sleep? And after a while, it just gets exhausting. Because now you're not just managing symptoms, you're trying to solve a pattern that nobody's ever sat you down and explained to you. And when you don't understand that pattern, every day feels like a setback. Every good day feels like luck. Now, let me clear something up right now. That day you felt a little bit better, something in your system was actually working better that day. That didn't just happen for no reason. And that matters more than you probably realize, because it tells you one very important thing. Your nerve can still respond. So this is not a question of whether improvement is possible. You've already seen that it is. Your own body showed you. The real question is, why doesn't it stay that way? That's the part nobody answers clearly. And that's what we're going to be going through today. Because what you felt in your feet, it's not where it starts. Burning, tingling, numbness, that unsteady feeling, that's where it shows up, not where it begins. Your nerve is reacting to the environment it's sitting in all day. And if that environment keeps shifting, your symptoms will keep shifting with it. That's why this feels inconsistent. But there's a pattern behind it. You're just not being shown how to see it. So let's walk through what the nerve actually is dealing with day to day, not in theory, in your actual day. And let's start with blood sugar. Before you think this doesn't apply to you, stay with me. This isn't just about diabetes. It's not just about your A1C number, because remember, A1C is an average. It takes roughly 3 months of blood sugar data to give you a single number. Now, the number matters, but it doesn't show you what happened on Tuesday afternoon. It doesn't show you the spike after breakfast. It doesn't show you the crash at 3 p.m. And it doesn't show you what your blood sugar did at 2 in the morning. And your nerve doesn't live in an average. It lives in what's actually happening inside your body hour to hour. Let me describe a pattern that I see constantly. Someone wakes up in the morning. They feel okay, maybe a little stiff, but manageable. They eat something light for breakfast, or sometimes they skip it altogether because they're just not hungry that morning. Midday, they're fine. Then the afternoon hits. Energy drops. They get that foggy, tired feeling. They grab something quick, whatever is there. Now, there's a spike, then a drop. And by the evening, their feet are louder. More burning, more sensitivity, and more awareness of every sensation. Then at night, when everything quiets down, it ramps up even more. And they think, my neuropathy is just worse at night. Now, sometimes that could be true, but a lot of the time, the day built that. The instability throughout the day accumulated, and by the time the room is quiet and there's no distractions, you feel all of it. Now, here's the part that most people don't get told. You do not have to be diabetic for this to be affecting your nerve. Insulin resistance is extremely common, and a lot of people have it and they have no idea. What insulin resistance means is that your body is already less efficient at handling sugar. So even normal meals can create bigger swings than they're supposed to. You don't spike into diabetic range, but you spike higher than the nerve can comfortably handle. And then you drop. And that cycle repeats multiple times throughout the day. Every single time that happens, there's a stress response inside of your body. That stress hits the smallest vessels first, the ones feeding the peripheral nerves, the ones in the lower legs and the feet. Then there's the overnight piece. If the blood sugar drops too low during the night, your body doesn't just sit with that, it triggers a counter response. Stress hormones push blood sugar back up. That creates a stress signal. So when you wake up in the morning and your system is already behind, a little bit more reactive, already a little more on edge, and you don't know why, you just know today already feels harder. Your nerve doesn't read the lab report. It doesn't know if you're diabetic or you're not. It responds to one thing: stability or instability. Instability creates stress. Stress drives inflammation, and inflammation irritates the nerve. So when someone tells me I'm eating better, but my feet still act up, I believe them. But eating better doesn't automatically mean eating in a way that creates stability. You can still eat clean and have your blood sugar spike. You can skip meals and make things worse. You can eat all the right foods, but at the wrong times, and it can still create instability. The nerve doesn't respond to intention. It responds to what's actually happening. And what needs to happen is stability. Consistent, steady, hour-to-hour stability. Not perfection, just steadiness. Now, let's talk about circulation, because this is where most people never got a real explanation, and it's where a lot of confusion about neuropathy actually lives. Most people think about circulation in simple terms. Either something is blocked or it isn't. Either blood is flowing or it's not. Now that's too simple. What matters for your nerves is not just whether blood is moving. What matters is whether delivery is consistent enough to support the nerve. Those are not the same thing. Now let me explain what your nerve actually needs. Your nerve cells are metabolically active tissue. They need oxygen delivered continuously. They need glucose delivered consistently. They need nutrients, your B vitamins, amino acids, the building blocks of healthy nerve function. And they need waste cleared out. That's not just a one-time thing. That has to happen all day, every day, consistently. Now here's why the feet are where the problem shows up first. Think of the circulatory system as a network. The heart is at the center. The major vessels carry the blood out. Then it branches into smaller and smaller vessels, all the way down to the microcirculation, the tiny capillaries that actually feed the tissue. Your feet are at the end of that network, furthest away from the pump, and also the smallest vessels with the lowest pressure. So when anything disrupts circulation, whether it's metabolic stress, inflammation, inactivity, or vascular changes, the feet are where it shows up first. It's not random that neuropathy symptoms are so often in the feet. It's anatomy. Now, let's go one layer deeper. You can still have warm skin on your feet and still have poor delivery at the level the nerve needs. This is something that surprises so many people. Skin temperature and nerve level circulation are not the same thing. Blood can be reaching the surface of the skin, and the microcirculation feeding the nerve itself can still be compromised. So a patient tells me, my feet feel warm, so my circulation should be fine. Not necessarily, because what the skin feels and what the nerve is receiving can be two different things. And when delivery to the nerve is inconsistent, your feet feel that inconsistency. Some days your feet feel more alive, other days they feel dull and heavy. Some days you can walk better, other days you don't trust your steps. Some days the burning is manageable, other days it's there before you even get out of bed. Now, that's not your imagination, and it's not random. That's the nerve responding to inconsistent delivery. One day it gets closer to what it needs, the next day it doesn't. And now, think about what that means when you're trying to help yourself. You take a supplement, you eat better, you're doing what you're supposed to do. But if delivery remains inconsistent, the nerve gets support some days and not others. That's why people so often say it helped for a few days and then it stopped working. It didn't stop working, the delivery just changed. And here's where it gets worse over time if nothing changes. A nerve that is repeatedly under-supported doesn't just fluctuate, it becomes more sensitive. Think about what that means for a minute. The nerve is already not getting consistent support, so it lowers its threshold. It starts to react to smaller inputs. Things that didn't bother it before now can set it off. That's when symptoms become easier to trigger. That's when recovery takes longer after a flare. And that's when a meal that was fine 3 months ago now seems to affect your feet. That's when a poor night's sleep makes the symptoms last for 2 or 3 days. The nerve's tolerance is shrinking because it's been operating at an environment that doesn't consistently meet its needs. This is also why taking things orally has its limits. You can take the best supplement available, but your body still has to absorb it, move it through the bloodstream, and then deliver it to the tissue. And the tissue has to be able to receive it. If the delivery system is compromised, the result will be limited. That's not a supplement problem. That is a delivery problem. And neuropathy is very often a delivery problem, not just a signal problem, not just a pain problem, but a delivery problem. Now, let's talk about movement. And I want to be specific here because most people think about this kind of in the wrong way. When people hear movement, they think exercise. They think working out. They think 30 minutes of cardio. And that's not what I'm talking about. Your nerve doesn't benefit from one session of movement. It benefits from movement that's distributed throughout the entire day. Now here's why. Your leg muscles are part of your circulatory support system. Every time your calf contracts, it squeezes the veins in your lower leg. That pushes the blood upward, back towards the heart. It's called the muscle pump. And for the lower legs and the feet, that matters a lot. When you're moving, that pump stays active. When you're sitting still for hours, it stops. And when it stops, blood and fluid can pool up in the lower legs, and circulation slows. Delivery to the nerve drops. So even if you walk for 20 minutes in the morning, that's good. But then you sit for 7 or 8 hours. That 20 minutes of support doesn't carry through the whole day. The pump was active for 20 minutes, then it was off for 8 hours. And your feet, they feel that difference. That heavy feeling in the afternoon, that stiffness when you finally get up, that sense that your feet just aren't responding the same way they were earlier, that's not your neuropathy getting worse. That's your circulatory support dropping off. And over time, long periods of daily inactivity, it makes the baseline even worse. because the lower legs lose some of their conditioning. The vessels don't get the regular activation that they actually need, and stagnation becomes the norm. So even people who exercise regularly but sit for the rest of the day, they're running a circulatory deficit in the lower extremities. What actually helps neuropathy patients, it's not the intensity, it's the frequency. Short walks throughout the day, standing up regularly, ankle circles, calf raises, simple things that you can do consistently, not to push the body, but merely to keep the pump active, to keep delivery to the nerve from dropping off. Because the nerve doesn't need occasional effort, it needs consistent support. Now, let's talk about sleep. And this is the one that probably surprises people the most, because they don't connect sleep to their feet. They think of sleep as something separate, like it's just about feeling rested. But it's not separate. Sleep is when your body does its most important recovery work. Blood sugar regulation is restored during sleep. Inflammatory signals are supposed to settle during sleep. The nervous system processes and recalibrates during sleep. Pain sensitivity resets while you sleep. So when your sleep is broken or short or even fragmented, none of that happens the way that it's supposed to. Blood sugar is harder to regulate the next day. Inflammatory signals stay elevated. Pain sensitivity is a little bit higher, and the nervous system is just more reactive. So when a patient tells me, my feet are always worse after a bad night of sleep, that's not in their head. That's exactly what you would expect, because the system never got a chance to reset. The nerve starts that day already behind and already more irritated. It already is starting with less of a buffer. Then the day adds more load on top of that. Blood sugar swings, sitting for long periods, whatever stress may have came up that day, and then by the evening, it all shows up in your feet. The other piece of sleep that matters is consistency. It's not just about one bad night, it's about what happens between that for weeks and months. Someone who has been sleeping 5 or 6 broken hours a night for months is running what we call a recovery deficit. And that deficit compounds. The nerve never gets a chance to fully recover. Night after night, and the system gets progressively less stable. So when people do everything else right, but sleep is still broken, the results are going to be limited. Because you cannot out-supplement a recovery deficit. You cannot out-exercise a recovery deficit. The system needs sleep to actually use what you're giving it. Now, let's get into the piece that ties everything together, and that's total load. This is the part that finally explains something most neuropathy patients have been wondering. Why is everything affecting my feet now? Why does a bad day of eating affect me differently than it used to? And why does one night of poor sleep now take 3 days to recover from? What does a stressful week show up in my feet? And the answer is load. Your body is always managing a certain amount of load. Physical load from movement and activity, metabolic load from blood sugar and digestion and hormones, and inflammatory load from ongoing irritation in the system. Mental and emotional load from everything life throws at it, and it all adds up. Your body doesn't separate these, it processes all of it together. Now, here's the mechanism that most people never get explained. When the total load is high, your body has to make decisions about where to send resources. And the way the body prioritizes is very predictable. It takes care of immediate survival first. It manages active stress first. It keeps the vital systems running first. And what gets deprioritized? Repair, find control, recovery. the slow, expensive work of rebuilding and maintaining tissue. So when your total load stays high, your body is constantly choosing survival and stress management over repair. And the nerve is going to feel that because the nerve is not a priority system. It's a fine detail system. And fine detail systems get less support when the body's load management is off. That's what I mean when I talk about people's margin shrinking. 6 months ago, you could have had a bad night of sleep and feel okay the next day. Now a bad night of sleep affects you for 2 or 3 days. 6 months ago, you could sit for a few hours and stand up without that heavy or numb feeling. Now you feel it after an hour. 6 months ago, eating something off plan had no real effect on your feet. Now it seems to trigger a flare. That's not a random progression. That's a shrinking margin. The system has less room to absorb stress. So smaller inputs create bigger reactions. The nerve has now become more sensitive, and recovery takes longer. Now, here's what I want you to understand about this. This is not your body failing. This is your body doing exactly what it's designed to do, prioritizing what it thinks is the most urgent. But when load stays high for a long time, the nerve keeps getting deprioritized, and the environment around it keeps getting less stable. And a nerve sitting in an unstable, under-supported environment is going to stay irritated. That's why people say, everything is affecting me now, because their margin is gone, and the nerve is reacting to everything the system cannot absorb. The symptom is in your feet, but the pressure driving it is coming from the whole system. Now, step back and let's look at this all together. Blood sugar that's unstable throughout the day, circulation that's inconsistent at the level the nerve needs, movement that's not frequent enough to support the lower legs, and sleep that doesn't give the system a real recovery window. Total load that's been high long enough that the margin is now small. If those things are not lined up, your nerve is being pushed all day. So even if you do some things right, if the rest of those pieces are still working against you, it doesn't hold. That's why people say, I'm trying everything and nothing seems to work. Now, they're not wrong. Some things may be helping, but the system is incomplete. And an incomplete system does not hold results. A good breakfast doesn't erase a full day of sitting. A morning walk doesn't make up for 5 hours of broken sleep. A supplement doesn't fix inconsistent delivery. Calming a symptom doesn't change the environment that created that symptom. That's why people get partial relief or temporary improvement, and then it's right back. Not because the body just doesn't respond, because not enough is working together at the same time. Now, let's bring this back to where we first started. That better day that you had. That matters more than you probably gave it credit for, because it showed you something very, very clearly. Your nerve can respond. It's not stuck or fixed in one state. It reacted when conditions shifted. The problem isn't whether your nerve can respond. The problem is whether the conditions around it are stable enough to hold that response. Right now, for most people, they're not. Not because you're not trying, because some things are helping and other things are still working against you at the same time. And your nerves, they feel both. That's why it improves and then slips right back. That's the cycle. And the only way out of that cycle is to stop trying to chase the good days and start building what actually created them. Stabilize blood sugar. Not perfectly, but consistently. Improve delivery to the feet. Not just one thing, but the whole delivery system. Move enough throughout the day. Not intense, just often. and protect your sleep because the nerve cannot recover without it. Reduce the total load so your body has room to actually prioritize repair. Not all at once, not perfectly, but consistently enough that your body can start holding the progress. Because once that starts to happen, the good days, they stop becoming random. They start becoming the norm. The burning doesn't run the entire day the same way. The tingling doesn't pull your attention the same way. Your balance feels more reliable. You trust your steps again. You stop thinking about your feet every moment. That's what real progress looks like. Not a perfect day, a predictable direction. And that doesn't come from doing more random things. It comes from understanding what your nerve actually needs and building enough consistent support around it. Once that happens, now it can start responding. You've already seen a glimpse of that. The question now is whether what you're doing is actually built to hold it or just manage the neuropathy. You don't want to react to only symptoms, taking something when it's bad, resting only when it flares, or trying a little bit harder when it gets worse. That's not the same thing as treating it. Treating it means understanding what the nerves need consistently and building the conditions that provide that. Now that's a different job, and that requires a different kind of plan. And once you see that clearly, you stop treating neuropathy like something that just happens to you. And you start treating it like a condition that responds to the right environment. Because it does. Your body already showed you that. Now all you have to do is build around it until it holds.